Let's talk about the Constitution of the United States. This is Brent Allen Winters in church coming to you from the remote hinterlands of the Wabash River Valley, where the hogs, the frogs, and the dogs keep up a racket all night long. Well, the laws of nature and the laws of nature is God, those two volumes, that's what we focus on, even on Sunday. I don't call it the Common Lawyer Comments on Sunday, but you can't put the rubber on the road without our common law. Our common law is the laws of nature, and the laws of nature is God. That's our Bible. That's what those phrases meant in that day. I'm in good company when I say that. William Blackstone said that in his commentaries on the laws of England. That was before our Declaration of 76, the laws of nature and the laws of nature's God. Let's look a little bit here at Miss Francine. We left off at 60, didn't we? Yeah, 61.
64. 64.
Oh, yeah. I said we're going to ask the $64 question. Here it is.
Right.
Here it is. I thought if I said that, Miss Francine, that would help me remember. You can see it didn't.
It helped me remember.
It helped you remember. Oh, good, good. I used to say I had this thing here. Wherever, I don't know where it is either. Oh, here it is. I keep one of these around. It's a little black book. Black book. Keep a lot of stuff in here. And I put it in my back pocket, and I tell people, this is my, not only my memory, but my brains. Now, when I'm on the show, Miss Francine's in my hip pocket, and I ask her, and she somehow remembers. Let's get going. Do the senators ever sit as judges? Now, remember, the fundamental of our common law tradition, and our Constitution just sets forth our common law tradition of government. The great fundamental of it is separation of powers. We don't want any single man or any single bevy of men exercising a single will, holding all three powers of government in their hands, in the hands of a single will, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. And we're careful about that in America. And that is the point where we're more English than the English. They believe that too, but they're not as careful about it as we are. Well, think about what they do over there. Their de facto chief executive officer is the prime minister. That's what they call him. The crown, the only job officially of the crown is to hold and protect and preserve the sovereignty of the country. That's their job. But really the de facto chief executive is the prime minister, who happens also to be the leading member of the legislative branch of the country. Now, see, we wouldn't do that in America. No, sir. We draw the line a little clearer. Is what they're doing over there okay? Biblically, yes. See, the Bible forbids that. For one will, one man, one group of men combining into one will, holding all three powers of government, one legislative body. We don't allow that in America. The sovereignty of your state is not held in the state legislature. They don't have the judicial and the executive function. No, they don't do that. All they do is legislate. That's why our general government, our Constitution of the United States, sets forth that common law government we had here and tightens it up. Tightens it up a little bit. For example, we've had lawsuits in America that have said that if a man is a member of the Naval Reserve and also a member of Congress or the Army Reserve, I know a congressman from home who's a member, West Point graduate, member of the Army Reserve. I've known two of them. And then lawsuits were brought and said, you can't be under the command of the President of the United States and a member of the legislative branch at the same time. It's a violation of separation of powers. It is sacrosanct. Well, I admire the people that brought that case. We need to think about it and keep it clear. And that is why, by the way, when Washington, D.C. was designed, L'Enfant, the Frenchman, designed it in a pagan way. Yes, he did. Don't argue about it. No, it's pagan. ugly pagan, the way Washington, D.C. is designed, but there are some common law distinctives in that design that the Americans insisted upon. One of them is that the Capitol building where the national legislature sits, called the Congress, is a mile from the White House. They insisted upon that. I'm glad they did. We have problems where that kind of thing doesn't happen. I mean, the Supreme Court justices, it wasn't Warren, I don't think. It was during the war and when Vietnam was raging. And the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, was it Warren? It may have been. He'd get invited to functions at the White House when Uncle Lyndon Johnson was president. I say that facetiously. He was a bad man. But he wouldn't go to official functions at the White House, and he encouraged the rest of the Supreme Court justices not to do it either, even though they got official invitations, just beg off and say, no, thank you very much. But and the reason he said that was because he didn't want the country to get any ideas in their heads, seeing a picture of him there with Uncle Lyndon Johnson, that he supported what was going on in Vietnam. You notice I said Vietnam. Sometimes I say Vietnam. You know, the guys are over there, they say Nam. They don't say Viet nothing, just Nam. And people over here said Vietnam. And people had families that were there. They would use Nam. Nam's probably officially correct. But he didn't want the country to have a lessened view of the separation of powers. He wouldn't go to the White House. And I'd said yesterday, if he was here, that the president or the Supreme Court justices are not allowed in the chamber of the Congress or the Senate except by official invitation. And if they want to throw their carcasses out, they can do that anytime they want to. I like that. God help us. Our Constitution puts that together that way. Do senators ever sit as judges? But there are some exceptions. By the way, if you're an Army or a naval reservist, the Supreme Court said, well, we think that's okay. Now remember, that's just an opinion. Harry Truman said, oh, he got ticked when Eisenhower and then Douglas MacArthur wanted to run for president. He said, no, we don't do that in America. He was against it. Of course, he was a colonel in the Army during World War I. That's true. But a professional military man, that's where he drew the line. He said no. Man to spend his life in military service has no business being president of the United States. So I'll tell you, I lean that direction real strong. And my experiences, thank you, my experiences have shown me that that's the only sensible position to take. And never in the history of our country, and never in the history of the United States, has any president, now we're talking about the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the United States, no president, nonetheless, no president has ever donned military garb, military uniform. Never. God help us if it ever happens. Oh, we may have gotten away with it with, we liked Ike, of course. That was his campaign motto. We like Ike. That's true. We got away with it. Maybe it was, but when you start making exceptions, that's where you get in trouble. We made an exception and we let a movie actor be president of the United States. Great guy. Had the right policies. Did the right things. Encouraged the right things by and large, with some exceptions. But that opened the door all over America for Hollywood to control Washington, D.C. You see, the Democrats have always wanted to do that. I mean, the incestuous relationship between Papa Joe Kennedy, Jack Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Bobby, and the whole Blaine family, they were like this with Hollywood. Why? Democrat Party has always leaned that way. FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, used Hollywood, and they happily did it to promote his presidency in the movie houses of America and then promote his war. Boy, did they do it. Everybody from Walt Disney to MGM. He needed it. He got it. And whoever got it at that time was going to win, regardless of how crazy they were, because people are easily swayed, aren't they? And exceedingly stupid, aren't they? If you don't agree with me, you're living in la-la land. You're stupid. And that includes me, of course. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, the stupid things I've done in life. You want to hear about them? Bible says, Paul the Apostle said of himself, the chief of sinners. Well, I could say the same thing. Chief of sinners. And there are things he said they're ashamed to even talk about. This cousin I had, she's older than me, that said she didn't have a bit of trouble rolling out of bed in the morning. It's just getting up off the floor that takes about 20 minutes. I wonder, how's she doing? Her name Nola. God, did we love her growing up? Everybody in the family loved her. They were like my mother. Everybody in the family loved my mother. She was the cat's meow. She was the peach from Georgia. She was the soft and wonderful warm rain from Alabama. She was the beautiful pines and the sequoias from California. I mean, that's the way people love my mother, and they love Nola the same way. A couple of sweethearts. My uncles and them told me about Mom when she was young. Is my mom a sinner? You better believe it. Now listen to me. So Nola writes, I said, well, how's old Nola doing? I looked her up the other day, and she's the song leader at her little church. No, she's not the song leader. No, here's what she did. She put together a little Christmas program, you know. And like we used to do in church, she goes to a little country church. That little country church where she goes ordained me when I was ordained, when I was in the chaplaincy 100 years ago before the flood of Noah. Back when we used to say ships were wood and men were steel instead of the other way around. Oh, you know, that's not true. We just said that. And she had written a little something up about herself on the little church website. And it said she'd made some mistakes when she was younger. She made choices, bad choices, that's what she said. I'm going to write her and say, or email her or something and say, Noel, if you ever made any choices worse than mine, I don't know what they've been. I mean, I know you. I can think of some things that didn't go right, but shucks. But you know, if you're a Christian, see, here's what happens. There'll be a lot of people worse than you. But you won't look at it that way if you're a Christian. If you're indwelt of the Spirit of God, you'll say to yourself, no, God be merciful to me, a sinner. Me. We used to sing that song. It was a Negro spiritual. That's what we called it. Lots of them. We learned it when we were in children's school. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. Not my brother, not my sister, but it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. And every song would talk about it's not him, it's not her, no, it's me. That's right. You'll look at it that way. As you get older, your sin will get bigger and uglier. Sin, what is sin? Breaking God's law. Breaking God's law. That's what it is. Well, do senators ever sit as judges, separation of powers? Let's see what he says. Yes. Whoa. This is an exception to the rule. When any civil officer of the United States, that is, not an officer of the Army, when any civil officer of the United States, then he says, not an officer of the Army, is guilty of a violation of his public duty, he is accused or charged by the House of Representatives. They are the grand jury. Listen to me, the House of Representatives, the Congress of the United States, the House of Representatives serves as a grand jury. He calls it sitting as judges. Don't forget, if you are on a jury, a grand jury or a trial jury, you're sitting as a judge. Difference between you and the guy on the bench with the black robe, there's a difference. His decisions are appealable. When you're sitting on the jury, if you all agree, it's not a majority thing. Shouldn't be, although in some common law countries like England and Canada, they've made it that way in non-criminal cases. But if you're sitting on a jury, you're a judge, and your decision is not appealable. That's right. Except according to the rules of due process. If due process has been violated, sure. And our Constitution of the United States says that, Amendment 7, unappealable. But it says here they can sit as judges, and it says such an accusation is called an impeachment. Let me repeat this. The House of Representatives have the representatives has the power of impeachment. Well, what's impeachment? Sounds like something, again, from Georgia, the peaches. No. Or Michigan. You know, in Michigan, they grow good peaches, too. Those are the two big peach places, Georgia and Michigan. What about in between? There are places in between where it's not good at all. And I, in the Wabash Valley, grew up in those places. We had a peach tree in our orchard. Didn't amount to much, and it wouldn't grow good peaches. Oh, we get a little bit. We could make some peach pie out of it. There were those great big pretty ones. We didn't get those. But they get them in Georgia. They get them in Michiganders. They get them up there. Why? Here's why. Because the temperature up in Michigan, when it gets cold in the winter, it stays cold. When it gets warm in the summer or cold or a little warmer in the winter in Georgia, it just stays that way all through the season. But where I'm from, it's like the banana belt. They say at home, the banana belt out in Idaho. You've heard of the banana belt in Idaho? No, Idaho's right up against the Canadian border. There's an area there they call the banana belt because it's so warm. So warm, and they have the same problem there they have in the Wabash Valley where I'm from. In the winter time, in December, you could have a day 60 degrees. And then within 24 hours, it'd plummet to 10 degrees. Just always up and down. You never know. Every day is different. And a peach tree can't stand that. A peach tree will live, but it won't produce well in those conditions. Quick fluctuations of temperature. God made it that way. Well, impeachment. What does impeachment mean? Impeachment means, it's a fancy Latin-based word that means to catch by the foot. To catch by the foot. Now, if you've never been caught by the foot through impeachment, you don't know what it is. You may know about it, but you don't know it. I know it. I've been impeached before. There are two impeachment bodies in America, according to our common law, which means according to our Constitution. What are they? The grand jury and the House, as they say in Virginia, or the House of Representatives. Those are two impeachment bodies. The House of Representatives can impeach Supreme Court justices, presidents of the United States, vice presidents, cabinet members. They can do all that. But senators, they have the power of grabbing them by the foot. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I won't say the rest of it. You learned it as a boy, too. They'd crucify me if I said the rest of it. Talked about catching somebody by the toe, and if he hollers, make him pay $50 every day. We used to say that when we were children. That was impeachment. Grab a guy by the heel. Don't let him go. Why? So we can try him, get him on bail. That's called impeachment. Well, the Congress has the House of Representatives has power of impeachment over officers of the United States, and your state legislature has there's a lower house, they have the power of impeachment. Most all the states have two houses, bicameral. That means two boxes, two branches of the legislature, except I think Nebraska. I think. Well, you can check it out. But if you have a lower house, what we call lower house, that's the house that's the grand jury to impeach people in government. Not to try them, but to impeach them. And if you're impeached, you are tried. The trial occurs in the U.S. Senate. Bill Clinton, the House of Representatives, Henry Hyde, delivered the articles of impeachment of Bill Clinton to the Senate of the United States. If he walked it over there and gave it to them, and then they tried Bill Clinton for high crimes and misdemeanors, the House of Representatives then impeached D.J. Trump, tried him for high crimes and misdemeanors. Before that, President Johnson, Andrew Johnson, not LBJ, but way back, Vice President Abe Lincoln from Tennessee. Like Lincoln, he had a conciliatory, kind attitude and policy toward the defeated southern states. And the left-wing wackos in Congress, the existentialists, and the sex perverts, by the way, well, they were weirdos, a lot of them. They wanted blood. And they impeached President Johnson from Tennessee to bind him over for trial to the U.S. Senate. And they did. And the U.S. Senate tried him, and he would have been impeached. That means thrown out of office by a majority vote. That's the way it works. And he escaped impeachment by one vote. So, the House of Representatives and the Senate have the power to set as judges, as grand jurors, to judge the matter, and as the senators try. They hear evidence. And by the way, the rules of evidence don't apply if they don't want them to. They don't want them to. It's up to them. This is not the judicial branch of government, and their power to try people is limited. And by the way, even though they can try them and throw them out of office, they do not have the power to deliver a verdict of punishment. Like tie him to a post or a pillory and give him 40 lashes with a wet noodle or a cat of nine tails or whatever they say, or fine him. They don't have that authority under our Constitution. Or send his carcass to jail. No, can't do that either. And neither can your state legislature. It's not part of our common law tradition. What do they have the power to do? Throw them out of office. It ought to be done a lot more. And when our country started, there were a lot of federal judges tried and thrown out of office. What do you mean by being tried by the Senate? Long answer. Tried, you're bound over, grand jury, indictment, that's the House of Representatives, and you're bound over to the Senate, if you're a government official, to be tried for high crimes and misdemeanors, and the limit of their power is to throw you out of office. Answer. The senators, U.S. Senate, take a solemn oath that they will carefully attend to the proof that shall be brought before them. See, that's evidence. And according to that proof, declare the accused person innocent or guilty, as the case may be. Our Constitution of the United States says that the Senate has the authority to try them for two things: high crimes and misdemeanors. Now, what does that take in? How broad is that? That's everything. All crimes fall into two categories: high crimes or misdemeanors. Now, if there's behavior that's unbecoming, they can choose that. Remember, they don't have the power to, they can say, yeah, that behavior constitutes a misdemeanor. A misdemeanor according to what? According to the state of Nevada? Their misdemeanors are different than the state of New Hampshire. These are all sovereign states. Well, it doesn't say, so what do we do? Here's what we do. To know what misdemeanors are, we hark back. We hark back to the common law tradition as it stood on the date of ratification of our Constitution of the United States. Easy way to remember it. If you can remember one date, 1787, because in 1787, it was hammered out. In 1788, it was ratified. Who ratified it? The militia. Of the 13 several states of the United States, they're the ones that ratified it. They're the ones that made the statement. They're the ones that had authority to do that, not the so-called framers or founders. They get too much credit for this. They're not the ones that put this in place. The militia of the several states put this in place. And on the date they did that, as a common law stood, what was a misdemeanor at common law? You see, there were no statutes that, oh, this is a misdemeanor. That's not our common law tradition. Our common law tradition has been always unwritten. It's just the way things are, and they aren't going to change. And we panel the jury, they know right from wrong, and we move forward. And whatever they say is unappealable. And that's the end of that. That's the end of that. Well, we should do that. We should hark back to know what it means by what it says. What did those that ratified this document intend? Well, they intended the common law tradition to be put in place. That's what the document's all about. Miss Francine, if you'd cue up a song, I'll close this out. This is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com. And this, friends, neighbors, and kin, is in church. We're talking here today about the laws of nature, our common law tradition, our common law government, and likely among the most solid stepping stones in the sweep and the flow of the history of our common law is called the United States Constitution. We're talking about it using the Catechism of Arthur J. Stansbury, 1828, published by Hillard Gray, Little, and Wilkins in Boston. It says, if 2/3 of all the senators who are present declare the accused person guilty, he is adjudged guilty. If not, he is declared not guilty. And I said a while ago, a majority. This is not a majority. I misspoke. It's a super majority. That's what 2/3 is. We call that a super majority. It's still a majority, but a super majority.